Hello YouTube and welcome back to my channel. I'm working on a 2006 Dodge Charger. Now this is the same body style as a 300 or a Magnum, and this is the problem that I'm fixing right here is the back frame rails that I need to patch. So right now I'm tracing out the first patch panel and matching up what I need to do. Take a spare piece of cardboard and you're slowly going to trace away and use your magic marker to trace the original style because the metal was all right away and I couldn't trace that. Now, remember, this doesn't have to be a perfect piece of cardboard as you're going to be making your patch panel a little bit bigger than the cardboard piece that you're cutting out anyway. So you have excess metal to work with and trim around with the grinder or your cutoff wheel once you're done. Because I'd rather have a bigger panel than a smaller panel. Now, if you didn't watch my previous video, you would know that this rot is from the foam that was sprayed inside of the frame rails and the rockers. The yellow paint is a rust reformer that seals it away. I already used a gel, plus using a wire wheel, a needle scaler, and a few other tools. You can check it out in my previous video as I will show you in that one how to prep the area. As this area is not perfectly cleaned up the edges yet, that doesn't matter because once you cut out your new panels, that's when you trim up the old metal to match the new metal. It'll be perfect. Take your time as this is something that will take a little bit of effort. There's a few different layers that have to be repaired. Just take all the measurements that you can to get this panel as close as you can get, and you'll be able to fix anything else that you're working with along the way. Now, if you're new to my channel, remember to like and subscribe and watch all the other videos that I have on my channel. I like to teach people with what they can do with minimal tools. That way, nothing's demonized or seems too hard for the average person to get involved with. Now, you can go back and forth and take your time with the trimming and tracing as the cardboard's probably not going to fit in there very easily. Now, when you're tracing it on your piece of metal, you can take your time and go all the way around the edges, and that way you know what you're going to be cutting from your template. My suggestion is to leave your template or your piece of metal that you're cutting out a little bit bigger than you originally wanted. That way when you go and put it over the area that you have to repair, you can trim it up. That way you can get a perfect fit without killing yourself with the cutout process and making it exactly perfect. Now these electric metal shears are not rated to how thick this metal is, so I'm kind of trying to push it to its limit. And it still cuts, but sometimes it gets an occasional snag because it's not meant to cut up to 16 gauge or 18 gauge steel. And there you have it. There's your rough cutout of your first pack. Now it's a decently close fit, but I'm still going to do some trimming, get my magic marker in there so I can see what I have to remove. I recommend putting on some gloves so you don't get cut while holding up this panel in the air. Now, once I was done with fitting that and testing it, I'm working on the next patch, which has to be cut and put in even before the other one was installed. Now, as you can see, this is a rough cut. It's still not a perfect cut, but it will work and fit in there. And this way I can bring it over to my metal using this piece of tape to mark where I need to extend it while tracing it on the metal. And this will work for a rough little template. Now I remove the tape, I factor in that I'm probably going to have to extend it, so that way I slid it down, and that way I get even more length without worrying about it being too short. Now I trace the edge on this end right here to make sure that that's the perfect curve that it needs. Here we go, another patch ready to go. Now just know that this panel will have to be bent and shaped. It will not be staying straight. As you can see, it still needs some trimming and some fine tuning in certain areas. Use your pen. You can mark where you're going to have to trim back to get that perfect edge. Now I use my hand shears and I just cut away at it a little bit slowly. You can see it's starting to shape up. Now I'm making one more template for the inside rocker panel, and I'll be tracing over on here on this 18 gauge steel. Now after cutting out these panels, I use this galvanized coating spray through primer. I use a flap disc and I take away any of the surface rust as it's already raw metal, so you don't have to do too much, and spray it with this. Now the sprayer and the propellant on this can is a little bit weak. That's the only thing that's a downfall on this type of product that I'm using from this company, but it does do the job at protecting it. I don't like how it sprays out. Like I said, it's like a fire hydrant with two focus. It has no fan spray pattern. But other than that, I get some coating on there. This is another panel that I'm making for the other edge. As you can see, I taped together the extra piece that I need, and this will be the bend point where I'll be making this the bottom edge of the rocker and where it folds together. I was using this edge of this cardboard to be a straight edge so I can show where I need to fold it. Now, if you don't have any sort of like major hydraulic tools or benders or anything like that, just remember a piece of steel is your best ally, or use a vise or something like that, and that'll allow you to make a perfect 90. Take your time, use your bodywork hammer, and you can slowly straighten it back out, get it to where you need to. As long as you're working with a good sturdy piece of metal, it'll be able to be flexed into what the shape you need. This is kind of the old school way and keep the budget down when you need to work on things if you don't have massive amount of tools yet. Right now I'm welding in the inner rocker panel and I'm still having little occasional fire issues. This is before I removed all the foam and I thought I got it all out. You can check out my previous video that I uploaded that will show you how to get out every speck of foam to help ensure that you have less of a chance of causing any sort of fire from the foam that's still trapped inside of the inner rocker frame rail area. Now take your time and do spot welds in multiple areas, and this is how you're going to get on your panels, as you can't do a continuous bead with this type of work that you're doing when you're doing body work, especially in these type of areas. You don't want to create too much heat. Right now the temperature is nearly over 90 degrees, so it wasn't in as much coverage for clothing, and I do recommend that you have all the coverage that you do need when you're welding. And if you'll see later on, I will be having even more clothing when I'm welding, but I do have my welding sleeves on, and my welding gloves, and my mask, of course, but I do recommend having on the right clothing so that you don't have a chance of getting burned. Right now, this is just because it's over almost 100 degrees underneath the car, and I would have passed out from the heat, and I needed to just do a few spot welds at a time, and then I would get out and make sure I was covered after that. The welder I'm using for my job right now is a Miller. It's a 215 multi-purpose one that can go from TIG, MIG, flux, and stick. Right now I am using flux for the spot welds and getting in this area to control a budget, and it'll still create a weld that's strong enough in this area. I just know that flux is not as desired in appearance, but in this moment this is not what I needed anyway. Alright guys, get it in there, get your spot welds on, and keep moving on. And now I'm doing the outer panel, sealing up in that long pass that's right behind there that I cut out. It's sort of straight and it's probably about 18 inches long with the bend in the middle. I'm taking my time in between the spot welds, giving it time to heat up, but making sure I get adequate penetration, and that's why I sit there on one spot and heat up really well, because this is an important area to make sure that you have the correct penetration. Alright guys, if you liked it so far, remember to stay tuned for the next part of repairing this section. You can find it in the next video being uploaded. Remember to follow and subscribe, and thanks again for following through this video and watching every part of it. I appreciate it and helping my small channel grow.